is a far more complicated and elaborate process than asexual reproduction. This form of reproduction essentially involves the fusion of male and female gametes, produced by reproductive structures such as the strobili, stamen, and pistil in the case of plants, and testes and ovaries in animals. Interestingly, while some organisms are endowed with both male and female reproductive structures, others possess only one of either reproductive structure. For instance, gymnosperms such as Pinus possess both male and female strobili and are called bisexual or monoecious plants. Cycas, on the other hand, has the male and female strobili growing on different trees and is known as a dioecious or unisexual plant. Angiosperms too comprise a variety of monoecious and dioecious plants. For instance, the coconut tree is considered a monoecious plant, where a single tree bears the staminate, the stamen-bearing unisexual male flower, and the pistillate, the female flower bearing the pistils. Even the pea plant is a monoecious plant, as both the stamen and pistil are present on the same flower. Papaya, on the contrary, is a dioecious plant that bears staminate and pistillate flowers on different trees. Did you know that we come across bisexual and unisexual organisms even in fungi? Bisexual fungi, such as the straw mushroom, bear the male and female gametangium, the plus and the minus mating type, on the same thallus. Hence, these types of fungi are also known as homothalic. This is in contrast to heterothalic fungi, such as Rhizopus, which bears the male and female gametangium, that is, the plus and minus mating type, on different thallus. Apart from fungi, we also see unisexual and bisexual organisms in the animal kingdom. The earthworm, which has both testis and ovary, is bisexual in nature. Did you know that bisexual animals are also called hermaphrodites? Human beings, on the other hand, are unisexual organisms, as each individual possesses either the male or female reproductive organ. Regardless of whether organisms are unisexual or bisexual, reproductive structures play an important role in sexual reproduction, a process that's divided into three distinct stages, namely the pre-fertilization, fertilization, and post-fertilization stage. The pre-fertilization stage is the first stage in sexual reproduction and includes gametogenesis and gamete transfer, events that occur prior to the fusion of gametes. Gametogenesis refers to the process of formation of the haploid male and female gametes due to cell division in the parent body. The type of cell division is decided by the nature of the parent body. Haploid organisms such as moss a type of bryophyte, produce gametes by undergoing mitotic division. Apart from bryophytes, other haploid organisms belonging to fungi and algae too produce gametes by mitotic division. However, diploid organisms such as pteridophytes, gymnosperms, angiosperms, as well as most animals, including human beings, possess specialized gamete mother cells called myocytes that undergo meiosis or reduction division, forming haploid gametes. These haploid gametes aren't morphologically similar, and hence they are called heterogametes. Moreover, while the male gamete is called the antherozoid or sperm, the female gamete is called the egg or ovum. Most sexually reproducing organisms, including human beings, are heterogametic, which means their gametes are heterogametes. However, in the case of some algae such as cladophora, the gametes are so strikingly similar that it is not possible to categorize them as male and female gametes. Such gametes are therefore called homogametes or isogametes. Regardless of whether they are homogametic or heterogametic, the formation of gametes is followed by gamete transfer, a process during which male gametes are brought in proximity with female gametes. In the case of algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes, water acts as a medium for such gamete transfer. The motile male gametes produced by these plants make use of water currents to reach the stationary female gamete. However, during this process, many male gametes either die or fail to reach their destination. To overcome this lacuna, most plants produce several thousand male gametes to ensure that at least some of them reach the female gamete. While water facilitates the transfer of gametes in lower plants, wind, bees and insects facilitate the transfer of gametes in higher plants, including angiosperms. In these plants, the anther contains pollen grains which contain the male gametes. The female gamete, on the other hand, lies inside the ovule, a part of the ovary, which together with the style and stigma comprises the pistil. For fertilization, it is necessary for pollen grains to be deposited on the stigma so that they reach the embryo sac. This deposition occurs in different ways in different plants. In the case of monoecious plants, such as the pea plant, the anther sheds the pollen grains soon after they have matured, which then fall on the stigma. In the case of dioecious plants, the transfer of pollen grains to the stigma takes place through pollination, process in which wind, insects or bees deposit the pollen on the stigma. These pollen grains then germinate and produce a pollen tube that contains the male gametes. This tube penetrates the stigma and style to reach the ovule, where the male gametes are discharged. While plants depend on water and wind for gamete transfer, unisexual animals such as human beings have developed a special mechanism called copulation for gamete transfer. Thus, whether in animals or plants, gamete transfer and gametogenesis are the two main events that occur in the pre-fertilization stage of sexual reproduction. Fertilization, the second stage in sexual reproduction, is also the hallmark of the process. During this stage, the male and female gametes fuse to form a diploid zygote. Did you know that syngamy is the other word used to describe the process of fusion of gametes or fertilization? Interestingly, fertilization does not occur in every sexually reproducing organism. In certain organisms, such as turkey, rotifers, honeybees, and even some lizards such as Nemidophorus neomexicanus, a process called parthenogenesis takes place. In this process, the female gamete does not fuse with the male gamete, but undergoes developments such as cell division or chemical changes to form new organisms. Parthenogenesis, however, occurs only in a few organisms. Fertilization, on the other hand, occurs in a wide variety of aquatic as well as terrestrial organisms. However, the way fertilization occurs in aquatic organisms is very different from the way it occurs in terrestrial organisms. In most aquatic organisms, including algae, fish, and amphibians such as frogs, fertilization is external, where the male and female release their gametes in water, and the fusion of the gametes as well as the formation of the zygote occurs outside the body of the organism, that is, in an external medium such as water. During external fertilization, the gametes are released in large numbers, which translates into a large number of offspring. These offspring, however, are vulnerable to attack from various predators, including big fish, which decreases their chances of surviving till adulthood. Interestingly, frogs and other organisms, including fish that engage in external fertilization, undergo several bodily changes during the breeding season to attract mates. Take the case of the three-spined stickleback, where both the male and female sport a silvery white belly. However, during the breeding season, the belly in the male changes to bright red, and in females, pale yellow. However, such changes occur synchronously, which ensures successful mating as well as perfect timing during the release of gametes. This enhances the chances of successful fertilization. While external fertilization is common in aquatic organisms, internal fertilization is common in terrestrial organisms, including fungi, reptiles, birds, mammals, and in a majority of plants, including bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. In internal fertilization, the fusion of gametes occurs inside the body of the female. While the female gamete, which is formed inside the body of the female organism, is stationary in nature, the male gamete is motile, which makes it possible for internal fertilization to take place. Did you know that though male gametes are produced in large numbers, there is a remarkable reduction in the number of female gametes that are produced? However, not all terrestrial organisms possess a motile male gamete. In seed plants, for instance, the pollen grains present inside the anther bear non-motile male gametes. These pollen grains, therefore, depend on agents such as the wind, bees, and insects to carry them to the stigma. When these pollen grains are deposited on the stigma, they germinate to form a pollen tube. This tube then travels downwards towards the ovule, where it discharges the male gamete. These male gametes unite with the female gamete to form a zygote, thus completing the fertilization process. Fertilization, thus, is an important process that ultimately results in the